There's a drawer in my apartment that no one touches. It's not locked, not technically, but I haven't opened it in almost 3 years. Inside, a stack of letters. Some folded, some sealed, all of them addressed, but never sent. I started writing them the night he left. Not because I thought he'd read them. Not because I needed closure. But because silence had started to feel like drowning, and paper was the only surface I could reach. The first one was short. Sloppy. You forgot your jacket. And your toothbrush. And your promise. No date. No name. Just pain, spilled in blue ink. After that, the letters came like rain. Sometimes one a week. Sometimes 3 in a night. To him. To people I used to call friends. To my mother. Even to myself. None of them mailed. None of them finished, really. Just fragments of a voice that no longer knew how to speak out loud. People say grief is loud. But I learned, the worst kind is quiet. It lives in your teeth, behind your ribs, in the things you never say, because saying them would mean you're still hoping for a reply. Now I live alone. By choice. Mostly. People come and go. But no one really stays long enough to notice the drawer I never open. Until one night, someone does. And everything I buried starts whispering again. His name was Theo. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He didn't try to impress me. That's what made him dangerous. Because people like that don't knock you over. They wait until you forget to guard the soft parts. Then they settle there, like they've always belonged. We met at the bookstore. I was buying a journal I didn't plan to write in. He was holding a novel I'd underlined to pieces in college. He made a joke about the weather. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the first time someone spoke to me, without asking if I was okay. He didn't treat me like a puzzle. Just a person. We got coffee. Then we got dinner. Then, without either of us saying it, we became a something. Not a couple. Not lovers. Not strangers. Just something. He didn't pry. When I hesitated to talk about the past, he changed the subject. When I needed space, he didn't fill it. And when he kissed me, he did it like someone asking permission, not claiming a prize. I should have known then. That something so kind was exactly the kind of danger I'd forgotten how to survive. He came over one evening with a bottle of wine and a smile I didn't deserve. We cooked. We danced a little in the kitchen. We played music too softly and talked over it anyway. And then, while I was in the shower, he wandered. Not snooping. Not spying. Just moving like someone who wasn't used to being shut out. That's when he found the drawer. When I came back, wet hair, warm skin, too calm, I saw the change in his face. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding a folded letter. Unsealed. Half-read. Mine. I froze. He looked up, eyes apologetic. I didn't mean to, it fell open. I thought it was. He stopped. Because the look on my face wasn't anger. It was terror. What is this? He asked gently. I didn't answer. He looked at the envelope again. It's not addressed. Still, I said nothing. Then he read aloud. You said you'd love me even when I didn't believe in love anymore. But then you left the second I believed in you. He looked up. I'm guessing this isn't about me. I turned away. Wrapped myself in a silence I thought I'd buried years ago. He stood. walked over, didn't touch me, just said, "You can tell me to leave. But I'm not going to pretend I didn't see this. And I won't lie, it makes me wonder how much of you I'm actually seeing." I closed my eyes, then opened them, turned to face him, and for the first time in a long time, I said something real. "They're not for anyone. Or maybe they're for everyone. I don't know. I just never had anywhere to put the words." He nodded. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't hand me back the letter. Just said, "Then maybe you need someone who can hold the words, even if they're not meant for him." He stayed that night. But he didn't touch me. We lay in bed, facing opposite directions. His presence wasn't weight, it was warmth. And I cried. Quietly. Like the ink of all those letters had finally found a voice. One that didn't need to be sent, to be heard. The next morning, the drawer stayed closed. But I didn't avoid it. I walked by it twice. Touched the handle. Paused. Then made coffee and let the moment pass. Theo didn't ask. He made eggs. Read quietly at the table. Gave me space like it was air. Not a test. Not a punishment. A kindness I didn't know how to receive. Later that day, when he left, I did open the drawer. Only for a second. Just long enough to see the chaos I'd stacked so neatly. Different pens. Different tears. Same voice. Mine. Unedited. Unforgiven. I sat down with a blank page. No envelope. No date. No recipient. Just space. And this time, I started with a name. My own. Dear me. You made it through things people still don't know about. Nights where you held your breath because you didn't trust yourself not to scream. Mornings where brushing your teeth felt like a marathon. You let someone convince you that love meant silence. That kindness was earned. That being chosen was enough. But you're still here. You didn't break. You bent. And yes, you cracked, but you never fell apart the way they expected. You learned to be whole without applause. To be kind without witnesses. So no, this letter won't be sent. But it will be read. By you. Tonight. Again and again if needed. And maybe someday, it won't hurt to be proud of that. Me. I folded the letter. Didn't file it away. Didn't seal it. I left it on the kitchen table. Open. Visible. Breathing. Like a scar finally allowed to meet sunlight. That night, I read it again. Not because I forgot what it said, but because I needed to believe. It was meant for the version of me sitting right there. Barefoot on tile. Heart half open. Theo called. He didn't ask what I'd done that day. Didn't ask about the drawer. He just said, "Want me to bring dinner?" And for the first time, I said yes, without checking if my heart was steady enough to receive someone. When he came over, he saw the letter on the table. Didn't touch it. Didn't ask. Just said, "Looks like she finally got a reply." I smiled. Because she did. It was the third letter I ever wrote. The envelope was still sealed. I remembered writing it, barely. Late. Alone. Hands shaking from too much coffee and not enough sleep. Back then, I called it a grief letter. Now I call it evidence. I peeled the seal. Unfolded the page. The ink had smudged in places. A fingerprint in the corner. Mine. The handwriting was fast. Unstable. Like I was trying to get it all out, before I lost the courage to admit what I already knew. You always made me feel like I was too much. Too loud, too quiet, too sensitive, too distant. Too everything, except right. You said you loved me just as I am, but spent years reshaping me into something more convenient. I stopped singing in the kitchen because you once said it gave you a headache. I stopped crying in front of you because you rolled your eyes. I stopped laughing too hard, dressing too bright, dancing too freely. And you still called me difficult. I thought that was normal. I thought that was love. I paused, swallowed, kept reading. Now I realize, love that makes you smaller isn't love. It's erasure. I wrote this so I wouldn't forget the difference. If you're reading this, no, you're not. You never listened when it mattered. But I'm listening now. To me. The girl you almost erased. I sat for a long time. Letter still in hand. Not crying. Not angry. Just aware. This wasn't a love letter. This was a survival letter. A flare shot into the dark, from someone trying not to disappear. I placed it on the counter beside the newer one. The one I'd written to myself. Side by side. Two voices. Two versions of me, that finally knew they weren't crazy. Just unheard. Theo came over that evening. He saw the second letter. The older one. He glanced at me. You read one? I nodded. It wasn't about missing him. He didn't say, I told you so. Didn't smirk. Just said, good. Later that night, we watched a film. Nothing heavy. A soft one. With music and monologues. And a character who looked in the mirror and said, I'm still here. Even if no one else sees me. Theo looked at me. I didn't flinch. Because this time, I saw myself first. I used to think healing meant deleting. Delete the photos. Delete the number. Delete the part of you that still remembers how his voice dipped when he was about to lie. But now I know. Healing isn't erasure. It's witnessing. It's saying, yes, that happened. And I lived anyway. That's why I wrote this letter. Not to him. Not to me. To her. The one who hasn't left yet. Who's still sitting in the silence. Wondering if it's her fault. The one I'll never meet, but somehow know better than anyone. I wrote it slowly. By hand. Like it mattered. Like she mattered. Because she does. Dear you. If you're reading this, you probably haven't left him yet. You're still making excuses for the way your voice sounds smaller around him. Still telling yourself you're too sensitive. Too dramatic. Too broken. You're not. He just learned how to dim your light. Before you realized how bright it was. You still laugh, but only when he's not looking. You still cry, but only when the door is closed. You still love him. But you're learning that love shouldn't cost you your own reflection. One day, you'll leave, not with fire, not with a scream. You'll just stand up, quietly, and not come back. And that will be the bravest thing you've ever done. Until then, I see you. And you're not alone. A woman who once stayed too long. I didn't fold that letter. Didn't hide it. I pinned it on the inside of the drawer. Not for me. For whoever finds it one day. Maybe a friend. Maybe a stranger. Maybe the next version of me. When Theo came over that night, he noticed the drawer was open. Wide. I didn't close it. He didn't comment. Just looked at me and said, do you feel lighter? And for the first time, I didn't shrug. I answered honestly. Not yet. But I feel seen. We cooked dinner. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't plan the future. Just stood beside each other in the now. And let it be enough. Later that night, I watched him fall asleep on my couch. Book still in his lap. Head tilted, breathing slow. And I thought, Maybe some people come to stay, but the best ones never rush the door. It arrived in a plain white envelope. No return address. No handwriting I recognized. Just my name, written too carefully. The kind of careful that says, I owe you something. And I don't know how to begin. I almost didn't open it. Assumed it was junk. A bank statement. Something from the before time I forgot to unsubscribe from. But something stopped me. A tug in the chest. A faint echo of a voice I hadn't heard in years. Inside, 2 pages. Typed. Signed in ink I recognized before I read the name. Claire. His sister. She and I were never close. She kept a polite distance. Smiled at birthdays. Brought wine to dinners. And yet, there were moments, glances across the room, when she looked at me like someone who knew, but said nothing. Her letter began like a confession. I don't know if you want to hear from me. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. But there are things I should have said. Things I should have done. And even if it's too late, I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I kept reading. Her words were heavy, but honest. I saw the way he made you shrink. How you started saying sorry before finishing a sentence. I noticed how you stopped making eye contact in rooms with too many people. How you laughed quieter. At first, I told myself it was just a rough patch. That all couples go through it. But deep down, I knew he was rewriting you. And I watched. And I said nothing. My fingers trembled. Not from pain. From recognition. I'd spent so long thinking I imagined it. That no one saw what was happening. That I was the unreliable narrator in my own life. But Claire had seen. And she had known. I wish I'd pulled you aside. Told you you weren't crazy. Told you it's not love if you have to earn your place in it every day. Instead, I smiled across the table. Past the salad. And betrayed you in silence. This letter isn't enough. But it's what I have. I hope you're happy now. You deserve to be. Claire. I read it again. And again. And still, no tears came. Because it wasn't a wound. It was a stitch. A thread closing something that had been left open too long. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry. But because I didn't need to. Some letters don't ask for replies. They just need to be received. Held. Heard. That was enough. That evening, I left Claire's letter in the drawer. Not hidden. Just added. Because now it belonged there, among the others. Not as a weight, but as a witness. Theo came by later than usual. He noticed the change in me instantly. You okay? I nodded. Then I said something I didn't expect. Someone finally apologized for not seeing me. He tilted his head. And how does that feel? I smiled softly. Like I don't need their apology anymore. But I'm grateful they said it anyway. There's something sacred about reading in silence. You control the pace. You decide where the pause lives. Where the breath catches. But reading aloud, that's something else entirely. You let the words live outside of you. Let them echo. Be heard. Even if the only one listening is yourself. Theo asked me once, have you ever shared your writing? I laughed. No one wants to read sadness in cursive. He didn't laugh back. Instead, he asked, what if it's not sadness? What if it's proof of survival? That stayed with me. One Sunday afternoon, when the sky was too gray for anything cheerful, I sat on the couch and pulled out one of the older letters. One I barely remembered writing. It was dated. Signed. Unsent, like all the others. I cleared my throat and read it aloud. You told me I was lucky you stayed. I told myself that too. Because if someone stays, it must mean they love you. Right? Wrong. Sometimes people stay to make sure you forget how to leave. You didn't hold me. You held me back. And I called that safety. My voice didn't crack. Not this time. I paused, then looked at Theo, who'd been sitting quietly on the floor nearby, reading. He closed his book. You wrote that? I nodded. When? 3 years ago. He was quiet for a moment. Then, do you still believe it? I thought. Then answered. No. But I believe I needed to. After that, we started a new ritual. Sunday readings. I'd choose a letter. Sometimes old. Sometimes new. Sometimes unfinished. And I'd read it out loud. Theo never interrupted. Never reacted too much. He just listened. With the kind of focus that told me my voice wasn't just sound, it was something sacred. One Sunday, I read a letter I wrote that morning. The freshest one yet. No edits. No revisions. Just raw words, bled straight onto the page. To the next woman who thinks she's broken, I hope you understand this before I did, that his silence wasn't your fault. I hope you don't shrink to fit his patience. I hope you scream, cry, laugh, exist, without apology. I hope you never stop dressing for yourself, dancing for yourself, healing for yourself. I hope your love feels like a mirror, not a mask. And if you ever need someone to remind you that it's okay to leave, I've been there. I left. You can too. Me. When I finished, the room was still. Theo didn't speak for a long moment. Then he stood, crossed the room, and kissed my forehead. Not like a lover. Not like a man claiming something. Like a witness. A quiet kind of reverence. The kind you give to someone who just buried a ghost with their own bare hands. It started with a message. A woman I barely knew, friend of a friend, from a book club I only visited once. Hey, I heard you've been writing. Some of your stuff is powerful. We're holding a small open mic night, more like a story circle, really. No pressure, but if you ever wanted to share something, it could help someone. I reread the message 5 times. Then stared at the screen, like it was a trap. Not because it was dangerous, but because it was true. I had things to say. I just wasn't sure I could say them in front of people who might recognize themselves in the wounds I exposed. That night I told Theo. He was quiet at first. Then he asked, "What would happen if you did?" I shrugged. I'd cry. I'd shake. I'd probably regret it. And what would happen if you didn't? I looked at him. Nothing. He nodded. Sometimes nothing is louder than fear. The next morning, I said yes. The night of the reading, I arrived early. Too early. The room was small, warm, lined with fairy lights and folding chairs. There was a mic, a stool, and a sign taped to the wall. Your voice is not too much. That almost broke me. Because for years, mine had been not enough. When my name was called, I felt every heartbeat like thunder. I walked up slowly, held the paper tight. Saturday. Breathed. And then I read. This letter was never meant for a stage. It was meant for a drawer. One I kept locked for years because I thought my story would only matter if it ended with someone loving me. But this isn't about who left. It's about who stayed, me. So here it is. I survived a love that made me doubt my reflection. I survived being called too sensitive, too needy, too much. I survived quiet manipulation dressed as patience. And I'm still learning how to celebrate that. But I wrote it down. Because maybe you need to hear it too. Maybe you've been waiting for permission to leave, or stay, or speak, or scream. Consider this it. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to speak up. You're allowed to begin again. This is my beginning. Thanks for letting me share it with you. Me. The room was silent. Not like discomfort. Like reverence. And then, one clap. Then another. Not loud. Not wild. Just steady. Like heartbeats finally aligning. Afterward, 3 people hugged me. 2 handed me notes. 1 whispered. That was my story too. I cried in the car. Not because I was broken. But because I'd finally let someone see the cracks. And they didn't run. That night, I told Theo. I didn't die. He smiled. I never thought you would. Then I whispered something, even I didn't expect. I think I want to share more. I think I'm ready. He didn't answer. Just pulled me close. And in his silence, I heard the loudest truth. I was safe. And I was heard. I didn't plan to give them away. The drawer had become part of me. Like a scar I stopped hiding. A private archive of every word I wasn't brave enough to say out loud. Until now. But healing has a strange rhythm. Sometimes it whispers, keep it safe. And sometimes it says, let someone else hold it now. Her name was Riley. Mid-20s. Wide eyes that didn't blink often. Shoulders too tense for someone that young. We met through a friend. Coffee became conversation. Conversation became honesty. And then one day she said, barely audible, I don't think he ever hit me. But I still feel bruised. And I knew. I knew exactly what she meant. She reminded me of myself. Not just in words. In the pauses between them. The way she apologized for speaking. The way her hand trembled when she held her cup. The way she called it complicated instead of painful. I didn't tell her what to do. Didn't say leave him. Didn't say you'll be okay. I just asked. Would you read something I wrote? She nodded. So I brought her a box. Not the entire drawer. Just a selection. Letters that spanned the spiral. From confused to angry. From hopeful to free. Each one labeled in pencil. Not with a name. But with a word. Doubt. Begging. Realization. Leaving. After. And at the very bottom, one sealed envelope. Labeled, you. I told her. You don't have to read them all. You don't have to read them now. But they're yours for as long as you need them. She asked. Why me? I answered. Because someone should have done it for me. 2 weeks passed. Then I got a message. I left him. Just that. 3 words. Heavy as oceans. Sharp as light. I replied. I'm proud of you. She wrote back. I read them all. And for the first time, I didn't feel crazy. I felt named. Later that month, she came by. Returned the box. I offered to let her keep it. She shook her head. Someone else might need them now. That night I opened the drawer. It felt emptier. But not hollow. Like breath, after years of holding it. Like a home that's finally been lived in. Then gifted forward. Theo sat beside me on the couch. Asked, how did it feel? I thought for a second. Then said, like they were never mine to keep. He pulled something from behind the cushion. A notebook. Soft leather. Blank pages. New letters? He asked. I nodded slowly. But this time, I didn't write to the past. Or the pain. This time, I wrote to the light that came after. Dear next. You are not who you were. But you carry her kindly. You speak softer now. But not because you're afraid, because you've learned that silence is powerful. When it belongs to you. You write not to be heard, but to hear yourself. And that is enough. Me. It had been over a year since I gave Riley the box. Since I wrote a letter to Next. Since I opened the drawer. My life didn't explode into something new. It softened. Small joys. Slow mornings. Peace that didn't feel like a performance. I still wrote. Not every day. Not always letters. Sometimes poems. Sometimes observations on cafe napkins. Sometimes texts I never sent. But I wasn't writing from pain anymore. I was writing from presence. From a place that whispered, "You're still here. And that matters." Then one Tuesday morning, an envelope arrived. Cream-colored. No return address. But I knew the shape. The weight. The kind of paper that holds something more than ink. Inside, one page. Handwritten. But not my handwriting. Not Theo's. Not Riley's. It began like this. You don't know me. But I found your letter. I was visiting a friend who said, "You should read this." She handed me a copy of something you wrote. I don't even know where she got it. But I read it. All of it. I sat down. Stared at the words. Kept reading. I've never had the courage to write anything before. But reading your letters felt like someone finally turned on a light in the room I'd been sitting in for years. Your story isn't mine exactly, but it rhymes. The way you wrote about shrinking, about silence, about leaving without slamming the door, that was me. Is me. The letter was shaky. The ink smudged in places. But it was real. Like breath on glass. Like a pulse where I didn't expect one. I just wanted to say thank you. For writing it down. For not keeping it hidden. You didn't know me. But you saved me. I'm leaving tomorrow. Not with anger. With clarity. I'm scared. But I'm ready. Because your words made me feel seen. And now, I'm writing my own. A stranger you reached. I read it twice. Then a third time. Then pressed the paper to my chest. And closed my eyes. Because that's what healing really is. Not the end of pain, but the beginning of impact. I didn't know her name. Didn't need to. She knew mine. Not because it was written. But because she saw herself. In the space my words made for her. That night, I lit a candle. Opened a new notebook. And wrote my name on the first page. Not as a return address. Not as an apology. But as an invitation. Dear you. If you're still here, reading, breathing, breaking quietly, I want you to know, I was there once too. And I made it out. Not with grace. Not with glory. But with truth. And the willingness to say, this isn't the end of me, now go write your letter. The world is listening. Me.